This program is designed to provide general information with regards to the subject matters covered. This information is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, sponsors, or station are engaged in rendering any specific and personal, medical, financial, legal, counseling, professional service, or any advice. You should seek the services of competent professionals before applying or trying any suggested ideas. The information contained in this podcast is intended for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for individual professional legal advice. The podcast information was carefully compiled from vetted sources and references. However, R.O.S.E Resources Outreach to Safeguard the Elderly cannot guarantee that you will not fall victim to a scam. Let's talk about scams. It's the must-listen show for anyone who wants to protect themselves and their loved ones from scams. Every Tuesday at 8 a.m. Pacific Time on K4HD Radio, Joyce Petrowski, founder of R.O.S E, and her guests will provide valuable insights and practical tips on how to recognize and protect yourself from scams. And now, here is your host, Joyce Petrowski.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Let's Talk About Scams. My name is Brian Watson, Community Outreach Specialist for R.O.S.E Resources Outreach to Safeguard the Elderly. And I am filling in for Joyce for the next 3 weeks. And it is a huge privilege because I love doing our radio show. So thank you for tuning in. The first thing I want to mention is we had our annual golf tournament on Friday, and it was a huge success. We had almost 90 golfers, and they were all out and had a great time. We had great weather in Phoenix, and I really appreciate all of our sponsors. It was a whole list of people, businesses from the community really stepped up and helped us out. It provides a lot of our funding for what we do, including funding this radio show. So thank you for all of our sponsors, and thank you for all of our golfers and our volunteers. It was absolutely amazing. So today's topic is watch out for scammers using remote access. I have done almost 100 presentations in the public warning people about scams, and have really been focusing on remote access, and I'll explain what it is. So I'm going to tell a story about a lady named Kathy. And I met her after a presentation. She came up and talked to me and shared her story. And it's a heartbreaking story, and it's affected her tremendously. And this is what happened. She was at home, and she opened up her laptop, and she received an email, and it purported to be from McAfee. And I think she actually had a McAfee service agreement. You know, she was using McAfee on her computer, and the email said, we have upgraded your service. It's going to be an extra $25 a month for some additional services that they provide. If you do not want this new level of access, please contact us within 24 hours and we will take you back down to your original level of service. Well, Kathy is a very responsible human being, handles her finances. She didn't want to pay that extra amount, and she called the phone number. And she didn't know she was talking to scammers, but they had targeted her, and they're very good at what they do. And she said, I want to go back to my regular level of service. You know, give me my $25 back. And these scammers, the way they do it is, they say, we don't issue refunds, no checks in the mail or things like that, and we don't give credits on your account. What they said is, you, the customer, have to request the refund. So that is how the scam works. And she said, okay, because she really didn't have a choice. And they said, we're going to send you a little message on your screen. Just agree to it. And a little thing popped up on her laptop screen. And basically, she gave them what is called remote access. And we'll explain more about that in a second. And then they instructed her to type in the refund amount. So she typed in 25 for $25. Well, the scammers set this thing up. It's part of their scam. That 25 became 25,000, and they instantly started yelling at her and accusing her of stealing $25,000 from McAfee. It's high pressure. They threatened her with all kinds of things, either calling the police or a lawsuit. And they said, "You stole from us. You need to pay us back." So, in the meantime, they actually, um, behind the scenes on her computer, were actually moved money around her accounts, because that's what they can do with remote access. Remote access is like giving a criminal unfettered access to your computer. So she could actually look on her screen, and it actually looked like she received that $25,000. So they told her, "You need to pay us back." They instructed her to withdraw money from her bank account, which she did. She drove down to the bank, withdrew the $25,000, and had cash in hand. They kept her on the phone. They directed her to a local convenience store, and they gave her a QR code on her phone where she walked in. There was a cryptocurrency ATM there. Another story we're going to talk about. We've been talking about endlessly here at R.O.S E, and we'll be talking about again. Stay away from cryptocurrency ATMs. They're just fraud receptacles. But back to our story, they had her go to the cryptocurrency ATM, scan her QR code, and she fed in all that cash, and she lost it. And it's just terrible. And then, at a certain point, she realized she's been scammed. These scammers target her, and it's actually frustrating. And it's a terrible story. Um, Now, the key is, the whole scenario is basically a scam. It starts with that pop up, and if you give a criminal access to your computer through remote access, they can do all kinds of things. They can move stuff around, they can put malware or spyware on your computer, they can do all kinds of different things. But here's the deal, the scammers will never call it remote access, because if you hear the term remote access, you're like, wait, that's not right. There's a legitimate reason to use remote access. I've had my son do it all the time. He's a tech savvy guy. I was having issues with my printer. He is away at school. Um, he said, let me tap into your computer. So he sent me a little message. I agreed. He did some work behind the scenes, made my printer work. So there's a legitimate reason to use remote access, but only do it with someone you absolutely trust. This I knew I was talking to my son. There's a lot of scams out there where someone will call you up and say, "This is Microsoft," or "This is some other computer company, and we've detected a virus on your computer." These are scammers. They want remote access. Just the other day, my dad received a scam email, and he forwarded it to me, and I had some free time, so I just wanted to gain some learn how the scammers are doing these things. And it was one of those refund, you know a false charge, and you ask for a refund. And I was talking to this scammer, and he told me to open up a new tab on my screen, and he was going to have me type in some website. He called it their internal server, but really they were taking me to a site where they could do remote access. I told him he was a scammer, and I hung up the phone. So yeah, there's with the remote access, there's various versions of it, and even versions we haven't even heard of yet. Um, but anytime you hear about a hacked account or something wrong with your computer, it's a total scam. And these scammers are really good. They can actually modify the HTML on your screen, meaning they can change the words. They can go in there, and they'll look at your bank account and show the current balances. They can actually modify the dollar amounts, which is really, really scary. So the key is, you never believe anybody that calls you up about your computer. Just it's hard to do. It's Joyce and I talk a lot about having skepticism. It's okay to be skeptical. It's a healthy skepticism. Um, Anytime you receive an email, a text message, a voicemail, you have to ask yourself, could this be a scam? So here's some tips as it relates to this remote access. Um, Legitimate companies will never call you out of the blue and ask for remote access. The only time you should ever be doing remote access is with the company you work for, your employer. Maybe if it's a computer company where you pay for a service and you know the people and you're absolutely sure it's them, or a trusted family member or friend. Never ever believe that that company is calling you. Um, just hang up the phone and you want to call from a verified number. Don't do a Google search and take the top search result at the top, because a lot of times scammers will pay to get top of the list. Do your research, make sure it's the legitimate company. Um, if you do receive an email about an unexpected call about a computer problem, just hang up. Remember, time is our friend. We're never in a rush. I mean, what's the worst thing could happen? Your computer could crash. Um, and that's why we always have a backup for our computers. However you do it, you need to have a backup for all your files. So worst case scenario, your computer completely breaks down, everything is lost, you can retrieve it later. We're never in a rush. Criminals are trying to always make us hurry. Um, and Avoid clicking on any pop-up ads or links in emails. Um, Never click on emails, links in emails, or on text messages unless you're absolutely sure. The criminals are very devious. They make it appear like you need to click on that link. Don't do it. That's how you get in trouble. Whenever I mentioned my son earlier, but whenever I have technology issues, um, my son is my technology phone a friend, meaning he knows technology way better than me. Um, I always recommend finding the youngest person in your family who's computer savvy, because that's always your best bet. And I can always run stuff by him. And he doesn't charge me anything. Not yet. Maybe someday he will. But the key is never, ever, ever let a stranger have control of your computer. They're going to do all kinds of awful things to your computer. They're going to steal your money. They're going to they'll even set it up where they have continual access, where they can go back anytime and continue to steal, monitor your keystrokes, use your computer as a bot to go after other people. It's absolutely scary. I've reached back and I've checked in with Kathy, the lady that I mentioned at the beginning of the story, and this is still causing trauma to her. It was a traumatic experience. I mean, one, it's the money. All in all, it ended up being over $30,000 because they were actually able to pull money out of a home equity line that she had. So she's paying, not only did she lose money, now she's paying interest on it. Um, and, I reached out to her and I actually said at one point, I teach a class at the University of Arizona in Tucson, and I asked if she would be willing to share her story with my students, to put a face on financial scams. Because it's one thing to talk about people you don't know, but when you can actually see the pain that it's caused somebody, I really wanted to do that, but she changed her mind, and that's her right as a victim. Because I would never force someone to share their story that they weren't comfortable doing, but it still affected her. So many people think that fraud and white collar crime and these kind of things that it's not the same as someone who's the victim of violent crime, but there's still a lot of the same effects. There's adverse health effects, there's stress, and anytime you lose money, that causes a huge burden. I've talked to someone who was targeted in a scam, and she contemplated suicide because she had lost so much money, and there was that mental anguish and embarrassment and frustration. she thought about taking her life, but luckily that person didn't. So please sign up for our mailing list. Please go to roseadvocacy.org. It's time well spent. All we need is your first name, last name, and your email, and we'll send you really good information about scam prevention. So go to roseadvocacy.org. It's right on our screen here. And right on the screen at the bottom of the page, you can sign up for our free email list. If you like it, share it with your friends. And, we want to have a lot of people following this advice because the scammers are coming after us constantly. I mean, just last week, I got an email, a random text message from somebody. I'm going to talk about that next week. But I was targeted in a pig butchering scheme. And I do this for a living. I spotted it right away. But these scammers send out thousands of emails, and eventually someone is going to take the bait. So yeah, please sign up for our email list, and then share this radio link with someone you know. That's the only way we're going to stop scams is by public awareness. So thank you for watching. Share this link with someone you love or care about, and I'll be back next week. And we're going to be talking about a pig butchering scheme that started via text message. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. See you next week. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Well, that's all the knowledge for this episode. Tune in every Tuesday at 8 a.m. Pacific Time on K4HD Radio at k4hd.com as Joyce explores a variety of knowledge so you have the power to make scam protection your healthy habit. And until then, feel free to reach out to Joyce and let's talk about scams.